To be an educator means, in a sense, to be a miracle worker. You have to be able to take the traits, habits, and nature of the person you are educating and be able to actually transform them, change them, and make a new person. If you teach your friend's child Torah, it's as if you gave birth to them. If you're able to impart Torah onto someone else, onto a student, you actually have to change them. It isn't just learning. It's not just information. There is transformation involved. It's actually the quest of any therapist. I don't purport to be a therapist, but certainly do work with them. And a therapist's job is to take habits and to change them. So let's take a simple habit. Imagine someone is a pauper, and he has the mindset of a pauper. That you have to work hard and make money and work with your hands. And there's no sense of you can actually become wealthy and allow your money to work for you rather than your time and your effort. And you have to change mindset. It's not just a technical thing. It's to completely alter the entire way you think, perhaps the whole way you were brought up with, and maybe even for generations. So how do you change that? How do you change a person who was traumatized in one way or another and allow them to see the world in a brand new, fresh, beautiful light so that they can really, really adapt themselves, change, and become a new human being? If we want to learn how to really, really become a good therapist and a good educator, a good transformer of people, we really need to take a look at the greatest educator of all time. And from him, we can learn. We call this educator Rabbenu, our Rebbe, our teacher. He was so good, he was the greatest teacher of all time. But let's really grasp what this great educator achieved. We refer, of course, to Moshe Rabbenu. Moshe revealed the Torah. So Hashem gave the Torah through Moshe. First thing you teach a child when he knows how to speak is Torah tzivalanu Moshe. Torah was commanded to us by Moshe. Everything we know about Judaism originates from Moshe. He told us, he revealed the Torah down to this world. And every time you teach someone, you're emulating the ways of Moshe, and you want to become a Moshe Rabbenu. And so, it is imperative and critical for us to understand what Moshe is, who he is, and then be able to follow in his ways and do the same thing. Let's get an understanding of what Moshe's challenge was. It was a real challenge. It wasn't just teaching, educating the people, giving them information, but rather there was a fundamental foundation that the people lacked. In the words of Yirmiyahu Hanavi, the prophet Jeremiah, he says, "Vezarati et Beit Yisrael," I will plant the Jewish people. And then he says, "Zera Adam veZera Behima." There are two types of souls, two types of individuals, two temperaments. There's 1% that belongs to the one type, and the other 99, maybe 99.9, belong to the other type. But there are two distinct types of souls. The first type is human beings, human souls. The second type is animal souls. Moshe was dealing with the animal souls. And when we understand what animal souls are, we get how difficult his challenge was and what he had to accomplish. So there were people before Moshe, such as the patriarchs, Abraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, the matriarchs. Those people were tzaddikim, righteous, holy people. To them, Hashem was absolute and real. They didn't serve Hashem, they experienced Hashem. So imagine today the difference between a wealthy person versus a pauper. The wealthy person sees the world differently. It's a gvir. It's a whole new way of operating. It's a higher consciousness. But the difference between the pauper and the wealthy man is just technical. A little more money, a little less money. When it comes to the difference between a tzaddik and a regular individual, Yirmiyahu says it's zera adam vezera behima. It's more like the difference between a human and an animal. Human beings are alive. They have a brain and they have a heart. But so do animals. They also have a brain and a heart. They can even think and imagine. So what exactly is the difference between a human and an animal? The difference is an animal doesn't have a cognitive way of thinking. He doesn't have the ability to process. Even though a guy just told me, they're talking about the war going on now. So he says, I remember that back in the Yom Kippur War, he was an American boy. He says, I remember I wanted to volunteer. So as soon as the war broke out, I got onto a plane with a whole bunch of my American friends, and we arrived in the Holy Land. We got there. Now the question was, what do we do? So we didn't know how to hold guns, and the army didn't have much use for us. Instead, because all the boys were out fighting, they put us in to work. They put us in the kibbutz. So we're on this kibbutz, and he says, my job was to tend to the chickens. And I'm an American boy, for the first time discovered chickens. He says, you know what I learned in the Yom Kippur War? That chickens are not as dumb as you think they are. They're actually pretty smart. I sense that the chickens, I thought they had a small little chicken brain. He says they're actually pretty brilliant. Every time I walked in, after 3 days, they got to know me. And when I walked in, they would sense me. And they would get excited about me coming to feed them. If someone else would come in, they would react differently. They actually knew and noticed the person who was coming in. And my greatest achievement in the Yom Kippur War was to learn what a chicken brain actually is. It's actually impressive. And sometimes that gets us to develop a relationship with animals, which is beautiful. Dogs can be really friendly. But at the end of the day, the animal, the most brilliant animal, is not a human being. A human being is alive. An animal is chai, he's alive, but he's not alive. There's just a difference between the one caliber and the caliber of the one and the other. A human being can develop relationships. A human being can invent things, and a human being can cage an animal, even though the animal is stronger than the human being. In that same vein, says the prophet Yirmiyahu, they are tzaddikim. What's a tzaddik? Tzaddik is someone who's righteous. He gets it. You talk to him about Hashem, and he's got it. Yes, I get it. That's Hashem. The other guy, the animal neshama, the regular person, you talk to him about Hashem. He learns about God. He knows about it. He meditates and studies and davens and understands and appreciates that God is creating the world anew every single second. Yes, I get it. I got it. And after he gets it, what happens? He can finish the meditation, finish davening, and he was in a lofty state. When he's done, he walks right back into the most crass desires that human beings are capable of. His Yetzer Hara, his evil inclination, can get the better of him. And you say, what's with you? A moment ago you were flying high in the heavens. How did you fall so low? Zera Adam, a human neshama, a human being, when he thinks about Hashem, he gets it. It's real to him. See, the world consists of two realities. There's what you see, and there's what it really is. What you see can sometimes feel painful and harsh and difficult. But Hashem is behind everything. Hashem is recreating the world every single moment. So what you're seeing is divine light. And King David says in Tehillim, when you withhold from me, when you hide your face, panecha is your pnimiyut. When I don't see the truth and sense what's really behind it all, I can get scared. It's a scary world when you live without Hashem. But if you have God and you see Him everywhere, there's nothing more to be fearful of. There's no anxiety, there's no worries. Zera Adam, those human beings, are able to live in that space. They feel God. That's our fathers, Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov. That's Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, and Leah. They are people who are a chariot, a vehicle to God, to the divine. Yes, things were difficult, but they sensed Hashem everywhere and in everything. And then there's the rest of us. Zera Behema. The difference between them and us is like the difference between an animal and a human being. We're like the animal. Talk about it, we get it, but God is not real to us. And so we're scatterbrains. We live in a sort of a schism because we believe and we know it's true. And we truly, truly feel it sometimes. And then we fall right back into materialism. And materialism takes over us. And it's as if it didn't exist in the first place. Another analogy for it is the difference between a child and a servant. Because on Rosh Hashanah we daven and we say, Hashem, we serve you im kevonim, im ka'avodim. Whether like children or like servants. What's the difference between a child and a servant? A child, when he serves the parent, loves them. The child does it out of connection. Not so the servant. The servant is coerced. He may be the best servant ever, but he's serving the master because he has no choice. He's not part of it. He doesn't get it. The children, Bonim, that's like the others. That's the patriarchs. They lived, they were tzaddikim, they were holy people. They just felt Hashem like a child feels the father. But afterwards, there's the behemoths, the animals. That's the souls who don't get it. They still serve Hashem, but it's more like a servant than anything else. For 2,448 years before the Torah was given, these tzaddikim, and there were many of them, the likes of Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, but before there were others, Shem Va'ever, Metushelach, different people, different tzaddikim, Adam himself. There were many people, and what they were trying to do was get to the people somehow and be able to teach the people. Avraham Avinu was a great teacher. Him and Sarah were able to convince a whole world of the existence of Hashem. And they had their converts, the souls they had created, brought close to Hashem in Haran. None of those people survived and endured. Nothing. The reason was because there was a stark challenge. Just because I am Avraham Avinu doesn't mean I have the power to teach you to be like me. Avraham Avinu saw the world in one way, and when you were near him, he convinced you about it. But as soon as you left him, you fell right back. So those souls that they had brought close to Hashem were not able to continue. And the question was, how do we get to these behemoths? How do we get to these servant types of souls, the animal type of souls? How do we bring them too close to Hashem? For that, we have the greatest teacher of all time, Moshe Rabbenu. What is the power of Moshe Rabbenu? He has the ability to take all these souls, all the regular common folk, the ones who are like servants, the ones who are like animals, who don't get it, the paupers, the ones who have zero connection to Hashem, and to change them and transform them. Moshe is a master, and his mission was almost impossible. And Moshe was perplexed. How am I supposed to do this? Imagine a therapist, and someone comes into her room, and she tells the therapist, she says, I was traumatized, and I live in a trauma, and I'm not able to get out of it. And all people around me seem to be happy and normal. I don't know, I cannot do it. I can't do it. I don't know how to change my whole perception. And the therapist tries to explain and to show it's so simple. And the therapist wonders at some point, how could I ever bring this person to get it? To all other people, it appears to be so normal. You just live life. People who have challenges, who have all sorts of addictions and anxieties and whatever else we all have, can find it so difficult And sometimes you say, just do it, just be normal. Wish I could be normal. I don't know how to do it. Now let's go back to Moshe and see that's the challenge Moshe faced. These people just didn't get it. But then there was one moment, the greatest moment of all history. And Moshe made that moment happen. And for one day, for one fleeting moment, for that incredible experience, Hashem took all these people, these behemoths, the animal type of souls, and for 1 second, they all sensed the truth. For one day, they all sensed the true reality. That moment was Matan Torah. Matan Torah, it says, there was a great miracle took place. V'chol ha'am ro'im et hakolot. The people saw the voices. How do you see a voice? You don't see a voice. You can hear a voice, you can see a sight. You can't see a voice. What this refers to is, there's things you hear and things you see. Things you see are absolute and real to you. Seeing is believing. Hearing is hearsay. It's not as strong and not as powerful. Those tzaddikim, the Zera Odom, they see God. They sense Him. It's absolute and real to them. To everybody else, it's like hearing about Hashem. You get it, you know it. Not the same. It's not as true and real. And so, it's another analogy. It's like the Adam, the animals versus the human, Adam and Behema. It's like the servant versus the child. It's like hearing versus seeing. Avraham Avinu sees Hashem. It's real to him. He gazes at the might and majesty of Hashem. The rest of us only hear about it. And that's what it means that for one moment, at the receiving of Torah, the people who are not the Avraham Avinus were able to see Hashem. Hashem opened the heavens and He just showed them. He says, "This is me." And they sensed God, and it was totally real to them. And there was the majesty of Hashem. Suddenly, that deeper layer was revealed in all its glory. They felt and they saw Hashem for that moment, for that day. And then it disappeared. And then they lost it. And now the question comes about, what do we do post Matan Torah? Now we knew that for one moment, okay, we were able to be like the others, to feel Hashem as real. And then we went right back to our original habits. And the question became, how do we make Hashem real to us? What does it mean to have Hashem real? To overcome our anxieties, to overcome our fears, to live feeling good and connected, that every moment of your life you feel the value and power, and you accept disappointments, and that you notice that every single thing is from Hashem, and you're able to feel good, to feel the beauty of Hashem's presence every single second. It's such a struggle for most of us. It's hard. You go, you rise, you see, and then you fall, and it's so difficult to get up and continue. Oh, it's hard. Moshe's task was he brought the Torah down. Now how do you continue the Torah into their lives? To give them a sense of Matan Torah for the rest of their lives, for the rest of history. What does Moshe do? Moshe is known as Raya Mehemna. Raya Mehemna means a faithful shepherd. He shepherded the people. He was faithful. He was real. Moshe's job is more than that. It's not just to be a Raya Mehemna, a faithful shepherd, but a shepherd of faith. To take emunah and to nurture it. See, every single one of us, deep down, has emunah. Because all of us were present by Matan Torah. We all experienced that moment. And even if we don't remember it, it has a deep impression on our psyche. It's part of who we are. To every one of us, Hashem is real. And then we lose touch with that reality. Moshe's job is to nurture your emunah. Raya mehemna doesn't only mean a faithful shepherd, it means a nurturer, a shepherd of emunah, of faith. His job is to hone in on you and say, you have emunah. I'm going to find the emunah inside you. I'm going to draw it out, and I'm going to allow you to live with emunah. That's a shepherd of emunah. What does this Raya Mehemna do? He teaches the people. And teaching means to impart da'as on the people. Da'as we translate as knowledge. And when Moshe comes to Mitzrayim, he says, my job is Yadu Mitzrayim ki ani Hashem. The Mitzrayim should know that I am Hashem. The Jews in Mitzrayim should know that I am Hashem. Vidatem ki ani Hashem. You should have das in Hashem. And Moshe, hu goel rishon, hu goel achron, the same as he was the Redeemer in Mitzrayim in Egypt, he's the Redeemer at the end. Moshe brings Hashem right down to earth. Because one day, Umallah ha'aretz deyo es Hashem kamayim layom mechasim. The earth will be filled with knowledge of Hashem. But that word knowledge actually doesn't capture the full power of what das is. Moshe's job is to bring das. So again, here's the issue. He's got these people who are totally not getting it. It's not that they don't understand the Torah, and you'll teach them, oh, yeah, do this, do that. It's that the Torah means that Hashem is real. And they had that one moment of getting it by Matan Torah, and now they just don't feel it. And Moshe's job is to impart upon these people that they should really appreciate Torah and get it and feel it and live it. Like the Mishnah says, Eizehu chacham haro'eh et hanolad. What's a chacham, a wise man? One who can see, we usually translate it as hanolad, that which is going to come about. So he sees the future. Actually, hanolad, in a deeper sense, means he sees that which is born. He sees the presence. Most people don't see Hashem creating the world every single second. They don't notice that every single thing that's happening is actually Hashem. And it's always, all the time, good. It's from Hashem. It's always working out for me. Because Gam Zulatay, if Hashem does something, it's always good. But we live in the external reality, and we can't live in the internal reality. Moshe's job is to take regular common folk who don't see Hashem and to show them Hashem. V'Hashem alehem yeroeh. Hashem should be noticed by you. To live with God. That the behemoth should become a human. But how do you take an animal and make him into a human? You can't. True. But what you could do is, you could impart das upon them. What's das? So, there's three parts to intellect. There's chokhmah, there's bina, and there's das. When you learn, part one is, you learn and the penny drops. You learn and you try to understand, you don't get it. It's like you're not getting the subject matter, and suddenly the penny drops and the lightning strikes and you got it. You feel like, whoa, for 1 second you get it. Then you don't stop, because then you'll lose it. You do bina. Bina means to think about it, to reflect. What did I just learn? Bina is expansion of what you thought about for that fleeting moment in Chokhmah. That's why Chokhmah is called a father, and Bina is a mother, because a father comes in for 1 second, conceives the child, and then the mother has to carry that child for 9 months and give birth to that child and afterwards nurse the child. The mother's doing the majority of the work, but you can't have a baby without a father and a mother. The father gives 1 point, the mother carries that point through. You have an idea, that's Chokhmah, you saw it, and then you carry it through. How do fathers and mothers get together and make babies? The Torah has a word for it. Ve'ha'adam yada et Chava ishto. When Adam mates with Chava, it's called das. That's what we call knowledge. It's more connecting. Das is when you connect to the subject matter. So when you learn something, you got it, you learned it, okay, and then you understood it and you reflected on it, and now it's fully developed because you have a father and a mother. You'll never get a baby out of that. Just because you learn something doesn't mean that it has any effect on you. In order to have an effect on you, you need to connect to the subject matter. You could learn how to cure someone and learn the art of curing, or learn CPR and get the whole theory, but not have a clue what to do when it comes into practice. Das is connection to the subject matter. It's when it matters in real time. And then you're like, okay, how do I actually use my information? What do I do with this? That's Das. Das is taking what you learned and applying it. It's like, you learned how to cure someone, okay, now let's go try it out. That's connection to the subject matter. Moshe imparts Das. His goal is to take people who heard about Hashem, who learned about Hashem, but they're behemoths. They don't get it. And he says, I'm going to give you Das. You're going to have this connection. You're going to get it. In other words, take people who have a lot of anxiety, a lot of worries, and say, guys, I'm going to show you that when you learn about how Hashem is running your life and how Hashem is helping you, it's actually real. And the way Moshe does that is by showing it to them in real time. And here's the key of how Moshe teaches. Essentially, there's 3 parts to this pedagogy, the therapy. How do you take someone who doesn't get it and change the habit and flip them over? How do you give them the das that they suddenly get and are transformed totally and become new human beings? You cannot make the animal into a human. You cannot make a soul that doesn't get it into one that does get it, but you could give them das. One of the greatest keys of teaching, more than anything else, is empathy. If you want to change the habit of someone, you need empathy. Like the old story about the guy who thought he was a chicken, and he's under the table, and nobody knew how to cure him of this psychological malady, the lunacy of thinking he's a chicken, until one guy figured it out. He too went under the table and lived with that child. And he too became a chicken. And he would do the same things as the other chicken. And once they became good friends, and the other one appreciated, you get me, you understand me and appreciate me, okay, now we can talk. That's called empathy. It's being able to get down to the level of the other person and get them. After Matan Torah, Hashem tells Moshe, now we're going to do the impossible. By Matan Torah, I elevated the people, and I showed them what Hashem is. And for a moment of Matan Torah, they were able to hear, to see that which is heard. They just saw what's usually distant. They got it. Suddenly Hashem became absolute and real to them. Now we're going to go into the next step, and we're going to show you how you can live this way. And that's fundamental and key to us. It's how we are able to live with Hashem in our lives. Living with Hashem in your life means being able to sense that deeper reality and live it. So how do you do it? The next parsha in the Torah begins. ואלה המשפטים אשר תשים לפניהם. On a simple level, it means these are the statutes, you should go teach them. But pay attention to the use of the words. These are the mishpatim, these are the laws, asher tasim lifneihem. Lifneihem means to put inside them. Panim is your inside. Hashem tells Moshe, I'm going to give you the hardest mission of all. Moshe's wondering, how am I supposed to do this? Moshe was so removed. He stuttered because he was too lofty. He was too abstract. He couldn't bring down the message. That's why Moshe didn't want to go on the mission. When Hashem initially sent him at the burning bush, he was arguing with Hashem. He wasn't able to bring Hashem down. It's like a teacher from the shtetl trying to teach an American boy in 1940. And like, I don't relate. Far greater was the distance between Moshe and his people. And Hashem says, now we're going to do the impossible. ואלה המשפטים אשר תשים לפניהם. You're going to understand and appreciate what that person is. You're going to go down to their level and really and truly get it. That means you listen to the people and you put yourself in their shoes and you mirror what they're saying. You emulate their words and you truly and deeply relate and resonate with what they're saying. It's going to be a deep internal connection that you have with them. Do you relate? ואלה המשפטים אשר תשים לפניהם means to be able to relate to them, and then you're able to help them. So the first order of the day, when you have to go down a level, is to appreciate deeply. Ask the person you're dealing with, what are you dealing with? You have a trauma? Okay. You listen to the trauma. You don't understand. You never say, I understand you. You don't understand unless you went through it. What you could say is, you do active listening. Listen to them. They're telling you that they're traumatized. And so you listen. And you reflect. And you mirror what they're saying. You're telling me that every time this triggers you, and you feel so worthless. And slowly but surely you go down into that space and you don't try solve the problem. You just enter into the deep, dark cave together with them. It's hard. And you go in there and you stay in that pain until they say, wow, it's so special that someone actually gets me. That's what it means that Hashem tells Moshe, לפניהם. ואלה המשפטים אשר תשים לפניהם. You cannot teach anyone unless you've built a connection between you. You've got to go to their panemius. These Jews are a whole different level from you. Don't tell them I understand, you guys don't get it. I understand you guys get angry and upset. You don't understand. Don't use the word I. Go into their true panemius, their true inner essence, and say, you're feeling such and such and such. That's what you're going through. And if you do that, they will feel that you care. And once they get that there's someone here they can trust, now you're able to pick them up. Rule number 1 is, in education and therapy, is empathy. Rule number 2, after they get that you empathize with them, the key is to believe in them. Moshe Rabbenu looks at every single Jew and he says, I know that you were present by Matan Torah. I know that you're holy, that you're divine. I know that you carry inside you a soul that is the child of Hashem. And even though you're not, you're a servant and you don't have that same power. But deep, deep, deep down inside you, Boni Matem Lashem Elokeichem is said of every single Jew. You may appear to be the servant type, the animal type, but every single Jew gets it. Every single Jew was present by Matan Torah. And every single Jew gets that Hashem is real. If you ask a Jew to put on tefillin, you'll sense that there's a cover, something that conceals. They don't relate. That's because the physicality and the materialism is blocking them. But if you break through that external facade, you'll discover the beauty inside them. The key for you is to be persistent. If you believe that that Jew is holy, then it's just a matter of staying with it till you're able to get through. A true teacher, a true therapist knows that their client, their student, will succeed. They believe in them. I know you're a human being. You're not an animal. And therefore, yes, you can. I know that every human being deserves the best. You're absolutely rich. If you have someone who has that kind of belief sitting next to you, if that person first empathizes with you and you get, you actually really get what I'm going through. You don't just walk inside and say, listen, stop doing it and just change. No, you empathize with me. And after you empathize with me, you look at me, and I stress and jump up about because I got so much of a challenge in my life. And you sit there, and you give me the certainty, and you just believe in me. That's what Moshe Rabbenu was doing. And it's so beautiful to read the verses. We'ela המשפטים אשר תשים לפניהם. What's the next verse? It appears to be, these are the laws. Okay. Law number 1. כי סיקנה עבד עברי, 6 שנים יעבוד. If you purchase a Jewish slave, he works for you for 6 years. On the 7th year, he goes free. That's the Shemitah year. That appears to be rule number 1. But if you look at the grammar of the way the pasuk is communicated, it says, ואלה המשפטים אשר תשים לפניהם. These are the statutes you'll put before them. And then it changes from the word them, which is third person plural, to go ki sikne, when you. Why did you move from lifneim? You should have said, these are the rules to put in front of them when they purchase a servant. No, it says, put these rules before them when you purchase a servant. Why did you change to the you? Why did you change the grammar of it, the pronoun? The answer is, it's not talking about, on a deeper level at least, about them. It's you, is Moshe. Hashem's talking to Moshe. ואלה המשפטים אשר תשים לפניהם. I'm teaching you how to be a teacher. You take these laws and you put it in their insides. You get it. You get them. You empathize with them. לפניהם. And then you start to say to them, Chevra, guys, I'm Moshe. I'm here to purchase you. What does it mean to purchase? I'm not creating anything new. You guys are Eved. What's an Eved? A servant. A servant is one who doesn't get it. Not like the child. And Moshe is here. I'm here to tell you that you're an Eved, but you're an Eved Ivri. What's Ivri? Ivri is the term we use for Avraham Avinu. Avraham was an Ivri. What made him an Ivri? That he came from the other side of the river. On a deeper level, when Hashem created the world, it says in Bereshis, there was a river flowing out of Eden. From that river comes 4 tributaries in Gan Eden. Everything we know about is after the river. Jews, all Jews, stem from before the river. That means every Jew has Hashem as real to him. He's an Ivri. The whole world is on one side, and you as a Jew, to you Hashem is absolute and real. And that's why you can walk over to every single Jew, no matter how distant he is from Hashem. You walk over to him and you say, I get that you have zero connection, that you believe in everything that's anti-Hashem, but I sense that you're an Ivri. You may be an Eved and not get it, but you're an Eved Ivri. And all I got to do is show you the truth, show you Hashem, show you the Torah, and then you'll just be bought. That's what it means, ki sikne Eved Ivri. You, Moshe, have the mission to buy him in, to lead him in. The first rule is empathy. Nobody will listen to you until they get that you care. Nobody cares to get you until they get that you care about them. And rule number 2 is once they got that you care, now you have the power. But it's going to be hard because they're so much lower. Moshe Rabbenu, your job is to give them da'as. And what does it mean to give them das? To teach them, to impart upon them, that they should get it and feel the truth. Yeah. Not as an intellectual, abstract idea, but real. What that means is, when you teach someone, so you tell them, okay, they get an idea that Hashem is creating the world every single second. Okay? And then things get tough. And then they get hurt and insulted and humiliated. And they jump all about. Walk into that space. Look at them and say, wow, I see you're feeling humiliated. Don't judge it. You're feeling humiliated. And they'll agree. Yes, thank you for caring. What should I do about it? What should you do about it? Remember you learned a theory that Hashem is behind everything? Or what you should do about it is to realize that it's just a feeling. And Hashem is really behind it, and Hashem is always good. And you have the divine in you. And therefore, you should know that what you learnt is actually real. And they'll say, no, but it's different over here. It's not the same. If you only understood how difficult this situation was. My situation is unique. Of course it's unique. And in your uniqueness, Hashem is right there. You need a therapist. You need a teacher. You need an educator who gets that. Who's able to walk right into that difficult zone together with you. Appreciate the deep pain. And then instill the emunah in a way of das. Das means that it's not a theory of, Chachma bin, I got it. No, you actually feel it. When you teach, you want to come down. You want to explain slowly. You want to show the student that you're feeling them. I get your pain. I empathize. And in that space, there's Hashem. It's real. I can't forget when I was in high school. There was an older kid, and he was a menace. Honestly, he was scary. I can't forget his murderous eyes. It was just petrifying to play soccer against him. And he would dribble you. And when he did, it was just these murderous eyes. It was scary. One day, he disappeared from school. He was expelled. It didn't see him for quite a few years. I wasn't shocked that he was expelled. It made sense. I don't know why. But years later, when I was done high school, and so was he, I met him. One day we got talking, and then we decided to learn together. And one thing led to another, and this guy became one of my very close friends. And we used to, for years, every time I would go back home, we used to learn. Every time I came, we'd get together and learn with him. He was so gentle, so sweet, and so beautiful. And to learn with him was an absolute joy. His eyes became these beautiful, loving, gentle, caring eyes. And one day I asked him, I said, I don't understand what happened over there. How did a guy who was, in school like that change? How did this happen? It's like a miracle. And he told me the story. He says, back in the day, the principal used to cane the student. He's like, yeah, I got my canes. One day the principal told me that that's it. It was over. Called me into his office. There was no more caning. And he expelled me. I was kicked out of school. It was a disaster because my home wasn't very functional. That's it. I'm out. That night, I went to sleep in the principal's home. After he expelled me, he looked at me and he said, okay, well, now I'm no longer your principal because I just expelled you. So no more discipline. He looked me in the eye and he says, come live in my house. And I went to live in his house. And he changed my life over totally. And if there's anything that I have, that my life became a success, it's because of that principle in that moment. That's called empathy. He had no choice to do what he did. He got who I am, but he believed in me. Empathy and belief. To have absolute conviction that this person is a good person. That was the mammoth task that Moshe was charged with. Take these Jews who have no connection to Hashem and to believe that they are godly. And you can reveal to them Hashem. So what did Moshe do? He took the Torah that he received of the 10 Commandments, Aseres HaDibros, and he broke it down. And he says, Ve'ele המשפטים. And the Aramaic translation of that is mishpat is halacha. Halacha means a law. Halacha means lalechet, to go places. Moshe says, I'm going to give you the Torah and we're going to go places. I'm going to take you to levels you've never dreamed of before. And what did Hashem do? He said, that was one moment in history that you guys had. Going forward, I'm going to give you myself. You now have the Torah. Who gave us that Torah? Moshe gave it to us. Because it's not just a teacher that we have. It's a Moshe Rabbenu that we have. What does Moshe do? He teaches us das. He broke down the rules of the Torah, brought it out into 613, 248 positive, 365 negatives. And he brought it down into the Chumash, and from then into the whole Tanakh and the Mishnayos and the Gemara and all the halachas and all the little things that we have today. And today you can open up any vart of Torah and it can pick you up. All you need to do is look at that idea in Torah, look at that mitzvah, and realize there's Hashem right there, right inside there. Yeah, when you put on tefillin, think about it. Think of what happened over there. Hashem himself is right here. Hashem is in his Torah, and just like in Matan Torah, Hashem was there. When I'm putting on tefillin, when I'm learning a little Gemara, that's God. And if you reflect on that, then you, even though you're a behemoth, you don't get it. The more you reflect on it, the more you get, the closer you get to being an Adam. Hashem tells Moshe, "ואלה המשפטים תשים לפניהם." Understand them and appreciate them. They're materialistic people. It's hard for them. But show them that if a Jew opens up a vart of Torah and he starts learning, see, I get you, but I'm giving you the Torah to your level, and the Torah is going to be relevant to you in your life. And when you appreciate, wow, I get to put on tefillin of Hashem, and you start getting excited about it. And when things are tough and hard, you say, wow, but I can fulfill the word of Hashem by being the simcha. Then what happens is an Eved, one who's disconnected from Hashem, finds a connection. When you acquire an Eved who's an Ivri, you show him that really you belong to the other side of the river. Rule number 1, empathy. Rule number 2, belief in the student. Rule number 3, be a facilitator. If you're a teacher, realize one simple thing. The student doesn't actually need you. They are special. Every human being is special. They went through trauma. You believe in them. But you be a ghost. Take yourself out of the picture. You're actually not needed, technically. They can do the work themselves. They have a direct line to Hashem. The greatest teacher of all time was Moshe Rabbenu, because he made himself invisible. He told the people, you are holy, you are godly, you are divine, you don't need me. He empathized with us, and then he believed in us, and then he said, here's the Torah, go learn it. And it looks so simple. Good therapist shows you the path, believes in you, empathizes with you, believes in you, and shows you the path. And just tells you, go, take it, and gives you the certainty. But the one who does the work is you. And then you don't need the therapist. We always need Moshe Rabbenu, because we always grow and grow and grow. But that's the idea of a therapist. Remove yourself from the picture. Moshe says, V'nachnu mo, I'm nothing. I don't exist. I'm just channeling Hashem and you together. That's why when Hashem calls Avraham, it says, Vayemer Avraham, Avraham. There's Avraham above and Avraham below. And there's a break in between. Avraham, stop, Avraham. By Moshe, loy psik timer. Moshe, Moshe. Because Moshe above and Moshe below are one. Moshe is just a facilitator. If you want, there's no break between Moshe above and Moshe below. There's no sense of ego. I'm not teaching you, oh wow, look what a good class I gave. Look how I was able to impart upon you. No. All I'm doing is channeling Hashem to you. A good teacher does 3 things. Empathizes with their client and student. Feels their pain. And then believes in them. Certainty and conviction that they give them. And then they facilitate, they just show them the way so that you can actually do it yourself. Kisikne eved ivri. and you tell them that Sheish Shanim Ya'avoid, for 6 years you have to work hard. Hashem created the world, and for 6,000 years it's hard work. Reality is not divine, but you have to find it, and it's hard work. And the reason why it's so hard is because Hashem wants you to work it and to bring godliness into this world. And when you do, Ubashvi'is Yetzei Lachov Shichinam, one day there'll be Mashiach in the 7th millennium. Mashiach arrives, and then all negativity disappears, and you'll just have God revealed. You show the Jew that the only reason you don't sense Hashem right now is because Hashem wants you to do the work. But really, you're divine. That's the power of Moshe. To show all Jews how you are godly and you are holy through empathy, belief, and facilitation. I'm just a facilitator because you are godly.